Most people live their lives chasing goals. They say, I want to lose 10 kilos. I want to earn $1 million. Or I want to be confident. But what they don't realize is that the goal is not what creates the result, it's the system. When you focus solely on the goal, you end up measuring progress through the gap between where you are and where you want to be. That gap becomes painful. It becomes a reason to judge yourself, to feel behind, to get discouraged. You wake up and say, I'm still not there yet. That energy begins to define you. You feel stuck. But the truth is, the system, your daily pattern, your rhythm, your repeated process, is where real transformation lies. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become someone who runs every day. The goal is not to write a book. It's to become someone who writes each morning no matter what. The goal is not to be successful. It's to live in a pattern of self-discipline, action, clarity, and vision that inevitably produces success. If you set a goal and never build a system, you create friction with every step. You rely on motivation. You rely on mood. You rely on how you feel in that moment, but feelings are fleeting. Systems don't ask how you feel. Systems ask you to show up. A system doesn't care if it's raining outside or if your thoughts are cloudy. It doesn't need permission. It needs commitment. That's the shift. That's where you begin to take control of your life, and this is where most people fail. They think setting a big goal will fuel them, but a big goal without a system is like a car without an engine. It looks great parked in the driveway, but it's going nowhere. Think of someone who wants to get in shape. They set a goal to go to the gym 5 days a week. For 2 weeks, they push themselves. They use excitement. They count their reps, their calories, their steps. But excitement is a temporary fuel. It burns out, and when it does, what's left? If they haven't built a system, a set time to train, a mindset routine, a recovery habit, a structured meal plan, the whole thing collapses. They start missing workouts. They start blaming stress. They go back to I'll start again Monday. The cycle repeats. This happens in fitness. It happens in business. It happens in relationships. People chase results, but they ignore the process. They fantasize about the finish line, but never master the mechanics of the daily race. That's not how change happens. Real success, deep, irreversible success, is quiet. It's built in the small decisions. It's built in structure. It's not flashy. It's not Instagram worthy. It's waking up at the same time even when you don't want to. It's showing up at your desk, your gym, your studio, your space when you feel uninspired. It's sticking to the plan when you'd rather negotiate with yourself. That's a system. And when the system is working, it works even when you're not feeling your best. That's the secret. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And here's the truth. The system is not just a routine, it's a mirror. It reflects your standards. It reflects what you believe about yourself. If your system is sloppy, your identity is uncertain. If your system is sharp, your identity is strong. That's why most people don't stick to systems, because systems require identity alignment. You can't have a system of discipline while telling yourself you're lazy. You can't have a system of growth while seeing yourself as someone who always fails. Systems demand that your self-image matches your actions. That's the work. That's where the inner meets the outer. The goal may inspire you, but the system shapes you, and shaping is slow. It's not loud. It's not exciting. It's daily carving, not explosive transformation. Think of a sculptor. They don't look at a block of marble and say, I'm going to create a masterpiece by tomorrow. No, they chip away every single day, a little here, a little there, and one day Others look at the result and say, "Wow, that's amazing." But the sculptor knows it wasn't one big effort. It was the system, the rhythm, the flow, the process that made it possible. When you begin to love the system more than the goal, everything changes. You stop needing quick validation. You stop measuring everything by how far you've come or how far you have to go. You begin to measure things by, did I show up today? You begin to ask, did I execute my system, regardless of my feelings? Because here's the truth, the results always come when the system becomes non-negotiable. You don't need to be perfect, you need to be consistent. And consistency comes from systems, not goals. When the system becomes part of your identity, success is no longer something you chase, it's something you align with. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. That sentence is the key to everything. You can write down the most inspiring goals in the world, dream about them, visualize them, and even obsess over them. But if deep down you still see yourself as the old version of who you've always been, you will never build the systems necessary to live at the level you desire. Identity drives systems, not motivation, not discipline, not even intelligence. Until the inner image of who you believe you are begins to shift, the outer actions will always collapse under pressure, because your mind is wired to remain consistent with your identity, not your goals. A person who says, "I want to be wealthy," but constantly thinks like someone who lacks, saves like someone who fears, and acts like someone who doubts, is always at war with themselves. Their actions are trying to outpace their identity. And that's a battle you will always lose. You cannot consistently act in a way that is different from who you believe you are. That's why willpower always runs out. That's why people start strong but fall back into old patterns. It's not because they're weak. It's because their identity hasn't been upgraded. The foundation of any effective system is who you believe you are. If your system is built from a place of fear, insecurity, or guilt, then even when you try to do the right things, there will be resistance. It's like trying to run new software on outdated hardware. It crashes. But when you begin to shift your internal self-image, the system starts to run smoothly. Actions feel aligned. Discipline becomes automatic. Because now, you're not forcing yourself to do something, you're expressing who you already believe yourself to be. Think of someone who wants to become healthy. There's a difference between someone who says, "I'm trying to lose weight," and someone who says, "I am a healthy person." The first person is always negotiating with themselves. Every meal becomes a debate. Every workout feels like a chore. But the second person doesn't need to think about it. They eat healthy because that's who they are. They move their body because that's what healthy people do. Their system isn't forced, it's a natural expression of their identity. This is the secret to lasting change. You don't chase it, you embody it. And embodiment isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you practice. You act from the new identity before you fully believe it. You align your behavior to who you want to become, even if the feelings haven't caught up yet. And over time, repetition rewires your mind. The subconscious begins to accept this new version of you as real. That's how identity shifts, not through inspiration, but through action, repeated, consistent. Aligned. That's the power of systems. A system is not just a sequence of tasks. It's a set of behaviors tied directly to the version of yourself you choose to live from. Every time you stick to the system, even when it's hard, even when you don't see results, you reinforce the new identity. You're proving to yourself, "This is who I am now." And over time, those small daily reinforcements add up to a completely different reality. The problem is that most people wait for their feelings to change before they act. They say, when I feel more confident, I'll start the business. Or when I'm more motivated, I'll go to the gym. Or when I believe in myself, I'll start showing up differently. But it doesn't work that way. You have to act your way into confidence. You have to move your way into belief. Action comes first. Identity follows. Then the system solidifies. It's like training a muscle. At first, it's weak. It shakes. It gets tired quickly, but you keep showing up. You keep lifting. You keep pushing, and one day that muscle is strong. That's what happens when you begin to train your identity. You don't wait until it feels strong. You train it into strength. And the way you train identity is through systems that reflect the person you want to become. If you see yourself as someone who is successful, your systems must reflect success. If you see yourself as someone who is disciplined, your daily habits must reflect discipline. It doesn't matter how small. What matters is alignment. It's not about doing 1,000 things. It's about doing a few things consistently from the energy of who you truly are, or who you are becoming. And when the identity is strong, the system doesn't need to be forced. It becomes automatic, because the mind loves consistency. If you believe you are powerful, your actions will match that belief. If you believe you are valuable, your decisions will reflect that value. This is not arrogance, this is inner alignment. The outside world always echoes the internal world. That's why the system has to start inside of you, not in your schedule, not in your calendar, but in the image you hold of yourself every single day. The moment you change that image, the entire system upgrades, your habits shift, your behavior transforms, your outcomes evolve, because now you're no longer acting, you're simply being. Your emotional state is the silent engine behind every action you take, every decision you make, and every habit you keep or break. People think they act based on logic, but in truth, most of what they do is driven by how they feel. If you wake up feeling inspired, the day flows differently. If you wake up feeling anxious, even the simplest tasks feel like climbing mountains. The problem is that most people don't understand the power of their emotional state. They either suppress it, avoid it, or become victims to it. But the key to changing your life isn't just in controlling your actions. It's in understanding and managing your emotions, because your emotional state is the control panel of your system. And if the system is what shapes your future, then the emotions that fuel that system must be addressed. Negative emotions aren't just obstacles. They're signals. They are messages from your subconscious, telling you what needs to be healed, reprogrammed, or released. But what do most people do when they feel anger, fear, self-doubt, or shame? They run from it. They numb it with distractions, food, scrolling, noise, avoidance, or worse, they use force. They try to push through with fake positivity, but what resists persists. If you suppress a feeling, it only grows louder in the background. Your system starts breaking down from the inside because your emotions aren't being processed, they're being buried. The truth is, you can't build a strong system with a weak emotional foundation. You can't build discipline on top of unresolved fear. You can't build success while carrying shame about your past. You can't build consistency while wrestling with internal guilt, because eventually the emotions underneath will sabotage the system above. And it won't be conscious. It'll look like procrastination, laziness, inconsistency, lack of focus, but underneath all that, it's emotional misalignment. This is why you can't separate mindset from emotions. You can't just read affirmations and expect change. You have to get honest with what you feel, You have to stop running from it. You don't overcome negative feelings by pretending they don't exist. You overcome them by facing them, by observing them without judgment, and by creating new emotional patterns through repetition. The goal is not to get rid of negative emotions forever. They will still arise. The goal is to respond differently when they do. That's emotional intelligence. That's mastery, and mastery is what fuels sustainable systems. Imagine someone trying to build a morning routine. On day one, they feel great, full of motivation. So they do everything: wake up early, meditate, work out, read, journal. But on day three, life hits. They feel anxious. Maybe they didn't sleep well. Maybe a memory from the past shows up. Suddenly, the emotional resistance kicks in. Now the mind says, skip the routine today. This is the test, not on the days when everything is easy, but on the days when your feelings try to pull you off track. If your system only works when you feel good, it's not a system. It's a mood swing. A real system is designed to work through emotions, not just around them. This is why your emotional state has to be part of the system. You need emotional rituals. Just like you exercise your body, you must train your emotions. Breathwork, journaling, silence, visualization, these are not luxuries. These are tools for stability. If your nervous system is constantly overwhelmed, your mind will look for ways to escape the process. But if your emotions are acknowledged, respected, and moved through, then you begin to access a deep inner calm. From that calm, your actions become clean, clear, focused, consistent. That's when the system starts working for you. You see, emotion is energy in motion. If it's stuck, it clogs your system. If it flows, it fuels your system. That's the difference. If you feel fear but don't label it as failure, if you feel sadness but don't attach it to weakness, then you allow the emotion to move. It becomes part of your process, not a block, but a bridge. It teaches you, it refines you, it shows you what needs to be rewired. You begin to understand that your feelings are not the enemy. They are feedback. They're guiding you to deeper layers of your programming, and once you learn to sit with them, rather than run from them, you reclaim your power. People who succeed consistently are not those who never feel negative emotions. They are those who have trained themselves to act despite them. They've built systems that honor emotions but are not ruled by them. They know how to process a wave of insecurity and still stick to their plan. They can feel doubt and still keep going. That's strength. Not because they're superhuman, but because they've trained their emotional awareness. They've practiced observing their inner state without collapsing into it. And they've built systems that include space for emotional alignment. This is the edge most people never develop. They try to fix the outer world while ignoring the inner one, but the emotional world always bleeds into behavior. And behavior repeated becomes habit. Habit forms patterns. Patterns build systems, and systems shape your future. So when you manage your emotional state, you're not just surviving the day, you're rewiring the foundation of your destiny. Your thoughts shape your emotions fuel your energy, and your energy feeds the system. Structure frees the mind, repetition builds belief. When life feels chaotic, when thoughts race and anxieties pull you in every direction, most people try to fix it by thinking even more, by planning harder, or by chasing motivation. But the truth is, chaos is not solved with more chaos. It's solved with structure. It's solved by creating a system that runs even when your mind doesn't want to. A solid system becomes your therapy, your anchor, your quiet guide back to who you really are. Because every time you follow the system, you prove to yourself that you can trust yourself and self. Trust is the foundation of unshakable confidence. Without structure, Your mind wastes precious energy deciding what to do next. Should I wake up now or later? Should I work out today or tomorrow? Should I start my project or wait until I feel inspired? Each decision drains your willpower, feeds procrastination, and opens the door for excuses. But when you have a system, when your schedule is designed, your environment is prepared, your plan is clear, you remove unnecessary choices, you reduce mental friction, you free your mind to focus on doing the work instead of debating about it. That's why the system is the therapy. It quiets the noise of indecision. Structure also creates safety for your nervous system. When you don't know what's coming, when each day is unpredictable, your brain feels threatened. It goes into survival mode, scanning for danger, doubting your abilities. But a clear, repeatable system tells your brain, you are safe. You know what comes next. You know how to win today. That safety calms the mind. It lowers stress. It creates a space where creativity can breathe and discipline can grow. And yet, many people resist structure because they think it's restrictive. They fear that having a routine will make life boring or rigid. But the opposite is true. When you have a strong system, you actually gain freedom. You gain time, energy, and focus to use as you choose because you're not wasting them on constant decision making. The system takes care of the basics, and you get to use your best mental energy on what truly matters. You gain the freedom to live with intention instead of reacting to every distraction or emotional wave. Think of the world's greatest artists, athletes, and thinkers. They don't rely on random bursts of inspiration or sporadic effort. They follow systems. They have set times for practice, work, reflection, and rest. They create structure not because they're disciplined robots, but because they know that greatness is born from consistent, repeated effort. It's not the single act that defines you, it's the repeated pattern. And patterns are built with structure. When you repeat an action often enough, you start to believe that action is who you are. That's how repetition builds belief. Every time you follow your morning routine, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who is focused. Every time you complete your planned work session, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who follows through. Every time you honor your schedule, you build the self-image of someone who is reliable. The more often you do it, the more natural it feels. What once took effort becomes automatic. That's the moment when your system stops being something you do and starts being part of who you are. But it's important to understand that systems are not about perfection. You will miss a day, you will have setbacks, you will face resistance. The power of the system is not in never failing, but in always returning. When you fall off track, the system gives you a clear path back. It doesn't leave you wondering where to start again. It reminds you, this is what you do, this is who you are, this is the next step. And with every return, your resilience grows. A great system also includes checkpoints for reflection. Because if you don't pause and look honestly at your actions, you can drift without realizing it. Self-awareness is built into the best systems. Time to review what's working and what isn't. Time to celebrate progress and correct course. Without reflection, a system can become stale or disconnected from your evolving goals. But with reflection, it stays alive, it grows with you. It adapts as you grow. Another power of structure is that it can protect you from your own emotions. Feelings change like the weather, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy. If you only act when you feel good, you'll never build momentum. But if you have a system, you can show up regardless of your mood. Because the system doesn't ask you how you feel, it asks you to execute. And execution builds progress, which often shifts your mood anyway. Discipline doesn't come before action, it comes from repeated action. And repeated action is the gift of a well-designed system. The system becomes the therapy because it creates certainty in an uncertain world. It gives you something to hold onto when life shakes you. It gives you purpose when you feel lost. It gives you proof of your ability to follow through when self-doubt creeps in. It doesn't matter if your system is big or small. What matters is that it's clear, consistent, and aligned with the person you want to become. Every feeling you experience is a reflection of a thought you once accepted as truth. Somewhere in your past, someone said something, something happened, or you drew a conclusion, and that thought embedded itself into your subconscious. You didn't question it, you didn't dissect it, you believed it, and over time that belief became automatic. It became a lens through which you saw yourself and the world. That lens formed the emotions you now feel daily. Doubt, fear, guilt, shame, hesitation, none of these are random. They are rooted in the thoughts you repeated long enough to turn into identity. But here's what most people don't realize. Emotions are not fixed. They are programmable. Just like a computer runs on code, your emotional world runs on thoughts. And if you change the thought, you change the emotional response. That's why overcoming negative feelings is not about resisting them. It's about rewriting the code. Most people try to fight their negative emotions. They feel fear and say, I shouldn't feel this. They feel anger and say, this is wrong. They feel insecurity and label it as weakness. That resistance becomes another layer of stress. They feel bad about feeling bad, and in that loop, the emotion grows stronger. The more you try to silence it without understanding it, the more it controls you. But emotions are like messengers. They show up to reveal what's underneath. If you listen closely, they're trying to help you. They're trying to say, look here, heal this, change this pattern. You can't erase a feeling by ignoring it. You overcome it by understanding where it came from, challenging the thought behind it, and then replacing it with a new truth not once, but again and again until it becomes the new default. That's reprogramming. And systems are the tool for that reprogramming, because the subconscious doesn't learn from big, dramatic moments. It learns from repetition, repeated thoughts, repeated actions, repeated environments. If you want to change how you feel about yourself, you need to surround yourself with a system that tells a different story than the one your old emotions are narrating. Let's say you've always believed you're not good enough. That belief leads to feelings of inadequacy. You hold back in conversations, avoid taking risks, sabotage opportunities. Now you decide to shift this. You can't just say, I am enough, one time and expect transformation. You have to create a system around it. You create a morning routine where you write affirmations. You set up a weekly schedule where you take small, courageous actions, speaking up, showing up, reaching out. You begin training your mind and body to experience a new emotional state. Courage instead of fear, confidence instead of doubt. That system doesn't just improve your life, it rewires the beliefs that formed those negative emotions in the first place. The emotional patterns you feel are habits. They're not just the way you are. You weren't born insecure. You weren't born hesitant. Those were learned, and if they were learned, they can be unlearned. But not through willpower alone. Willpower fades. Systems don't. Systems give your nervous system a new rhythm. They teach you how to feel different by behaving differently, and over time, the emotion follows the behavior. The mind begins to say, if I'm doing these things, maybe I am this person. You're not faking it, you're forming it. You must also understand that emotion is not your identity. Feeling afraid doesn't make you weak. Feeling unsure doesn't make you incapable. Emotions are temporary data, not definitions. But when people feel something over and over again, they begin to confuse it with who they are. I feel like a failure, so I must be one. That's a lie built on repetition. So what's the solution? Create a new system of repetition. Surround yourself with language, actions, routines, people, and environments that affirm a new belief, one that aligns with your higher self, not your history. And don't wait for the emotion to disappear before you act. Act anyway. Most people wait to feel confident before they speak, strong before they train, focused before they work. That's the trap. Action changes emotion, not the other way around. When you step into behavior that reflects your desired identity, even while feeling the old emotion, you break the loop. You send a message to your brain, we are doing something different now. And the brain adapts. Also, don't confuse emotion with truth. Just because you feel like nothing's working doesn't mean nothing is working. Just because you feel like quitting doesn't mean you should. Emotions are like weather, they pass. But the system is like the foundation of your home. It stays, it holds you. It reminds you who you are becoming, even when your feelings try to pull you back. That's why the system is essential. It's the scaffolding you build around yourself as you grow out of your old emotional patterns. This work requires patience. Old feelings might rise again, but now you meet them differently. You don't panic. You observe, you breathe, you return to your system. You show up to the gym, the journal, the workspace, the plan. You act even with doubt. You align even with fear. And over time, the feelings begin to shift. The fear becomes quiet. The insecurity loses power. Because you've trained yourself to feel differently by choosing differently.